the massive alien ships appeared over Earth without warning. They came from the darkness of space like metal mountains, their hulls darker than the void between stars. Each ship was bigger than any human city, bristling with weapons that could turn a world into glass. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his warship, the U.E.'s Defiance. He had fought in 3 wars, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Through the view screen, he could see the enemy fleet forming a perfect circle around Earth. 47 ships, each one capable of destroying everything humans had ever built. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Hegemony. They had conquered 17 star systems already, and now they wanted Earth and all human colonies. Their message was simple and terrifying. It came in perfect English, broadcast to every screen and radio on every human world. People of Earth, the voice was cold and without emotion. You have seen what happens to those who resist us. The Altarian Republic burned. The Centauri Federation fell. Your choice is simple: kneel or burn. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. After that, we will turn your worlds to ash. The transmission ended, leaving humanity with the most important decision in their history. On New Terra, the largest human colony, Governor Lisa Hamilton called an emergency meeting. The Colonial Assembly Hall filled with representatives from across human space. Some appeared in person, others as holograms beamed across the galaxy. The debate was fierce and desperate. "We have to surrender," said Representative Mark Johnson, from the agricultural world of Haven. "Look at what happened to the others. The Altarians had twice our military strength. They lasted 3 days. 3 days before their entire civilization was wiped out. And what happens after we surrender?" General Ryan Carter slammed his fist on the table. "We become slaves. Our children grow up in chains. Is that really living?" Dr. Elizabeth Warren, head of the secret Prometheus Research Project, spoke quietly. "There might be another option. Something we've been working on. Something they won't expect." The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the Prometheus project, but few knew what it really was. The official reports called it emergency terraforming research. The truth was far more dangerous. "What are you talking about, Elizabeth?" Governor Hamilton asked. Dr. Warren stood up slowly. "Project Scorched Earth. If we can't have our worlds, nobody can. We've developed the technology to completely destroy a planet from the inside, make it uninhabitable for thousands of years." The room erupted in shocked voices. Some called it madness. Others called it murder. General Carter called it brilliant. "You're talking about destroying our own worlds," Representative Johnson said. "Our homes, our farms, our cities, everything we've built." "Better than letting them have it," Dr. Warren replied. "Better than slavery." On Mars, Commander Helen Brooks received an encrypted message from Earth. The orders were clear but horrible. If humanity chose to resist, she would activate the planet's hidden fusion charges. Mars would burn from the inside out, leaving nothing but a dead rock floating in space. She thought about her daughter, safely evacuated to the hidden colony beyond Zephyrian space. At least some humans would survive to remember what happened here. At least some would remain free. Captain Danny Torres patrolled the outer edge of the Kepler 442 system. His ship was small, built for speed rather than fighting. When the sealed orders arrived, he read them 3 times before he understood. If the Zephyrians wanted his beautiful garden world, they would inherit nothing but burning poison. The evacuation had been going on for weeks, disguised as routine transport operations. Millions of humans had been quietly moved to secret colonies in uncharted space. The Zephyrians, confident in their power, had not noticed the mass movement of civilian populations. Admiral Morrison walked through the empty corridors of his ship. Most of the crew had been evacuated too. Only essential personnel remained, volunteers who knew they might not survive what was coming. They had all made the same choice. Better to die free than live as slaves. On Earth, President Kevin Johnson addressed the world for what might be the last time. The planet's cities were half empty, but those who remained listened to every word. "My fellow humans," he began, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. "We face extinction, but we will not face it on our knees. We are the species that learned to make fire. We are the species that conquered our own world by burning it and rebuilding it. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten those who were born from flame." The countdown continued. 60 hours. 50, 40. All across human space, the preparations were complete. Every world had its charges in place. Every colony had its destruction protocols ready. The evacuations were finished. Only the soldiers remained, ready to light the match that would burn everything humans had ever built. The Zephyrians waited, confident that humans would choose survival over destruction. They had conquered 17 civilizations, and not one had chosen annihilation over submission. They could not imagine a species that would rather burn than kneel. With 12 hours remaining, Admiral Morrison sent a message to all human commanders. Prepare for Phoenix Protocol. If they want our worlds, let them have ash. The die was cast. Humanity would burn free or not at all. The 72 hours passed like years. When the deadline arrived, a Zephyrian fleet expected either surrender or a desperate last battle. Instead, they received a transmission from Admiral Morrison that would echo through galactic history. "Attention! Zephyrian hegemony." Morrison's voice was calm and cold. "The human race has considered your offer. We have seen what you did to the Altarians. We have seen what you did to the Centauri Federation. We know what slavery means. The alien fleet." Commanders listened, expecting surrender. "Our answer is this," Morrison continued. "We choose neither to kneel nor to burn alone. If you want our worlds, you will inherit nothing but cinders. We are the species that conquered our own planet by setting it on fire. Today, we teach you why that matters." The transmission ended. For a moment, the Zephyrian fleet hung motionless in space, uncertain what to do. Then the orders came from their high command. "Begin the invasion. These humans are bluffing." They were wrong. On Mars, Commander Helen Brooks stood in the deep command bunker beneath the polar ice cap. The bunker was empty except for her and 2 technicians. Everyone else had been evacuated through the hidden jump gates. The red planet's surface showed no signs of life, but deep below, the fusion charges waited. "Ma'am," Technician Paul Davis said, his voice shaking, "we're receiving the activation codes from Earth Command." Helen looked at the red button that would end everything. Mars had been humanity's first real colony, their first step toward the stars. Now it would become their first funeral pyre. "Activate Protocol Scorched Earth," she ordered. The charges detonated simultaneously across the planet. Deep beneath the surface, fusion fire spread through the carefully prepared tunnels. The planet's core began to destabilize. Within minutes, Mars would become a burning hell that would be uninhabitable for 10,000 years. The Zephyrian ships, approaching Mars, suddenly found themselves facing something they had never seen before. The planet's surface cracked open like an egg, releasing streams of superheated plasma into space. The invasion fleet, caught completely off guard, was incinerated as the planet's atmosphere turned into a weapon. On New Terra, Governor Lisa Hamilton watched the destruction through the command center screens. The beautiful world that had taken 2 centuries to terraform was about to die. The massive industrial complexes, the sprawling cities, the parks and gardens where children had played, all of it would be ash within hours. "Send the signal," she ordered. "Let them know the price of our defiance." The charges on New Terra were different from Mars. Instead of fusion fire, they used gravitational collapse. The planet's core would implode, creating a miniature black hole that would consume everything. The Zephyrian fleet would find nothing but empty space where humanity's greatest colony had been. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker stood on the observation deck of Haven's orbital station. Below him, the agricultural world spread out in perfect green squares. Haven fed 17 human colonies. Its vast farms could have fed the entire Zephyrian fleet. Instead, it would feed no one. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving the final evacuation confirmation." "All civilians are clear." Steve nodded. The evacuation had been disguised as a routine supply run. Millions of people had been moved to safety over the past month. Now only military personnel remained, and they were here by choice. "Activate the atmospheric processors," he ordered. The machines that had spent decades creating Haven's perfect atmosphere now reversed their function. Instead of cleaning the air, they pumped it full of corrosive chemicals. The planet's surface would become a toxic wasteland within hours. Poisoned beyond recovery. Captain Danny Torres watched from orbit as his ship's sensors detected the chain reaction. Beginning on Kepler 442b, the garden world had been humanity's most beautiful colony, a perfect blue-green jewel in space. Now it burned with the light of a small star. The Zephyrian landing forces had already begun their descent when the destruction started. Their ships were consumed by the burning atmosphere as the planet's surface turned to molten rock. Not one alien soldier survived. "All units, this is Phoenix 1. Torres transmitted to the remaining human ships. Kepler 442 is confirmed destroyed. Moving to next target." The pattern repeated across human space. On mining worlds, the colonists had collapsed entire mountain ranges into the excavation sites. On research stations, scientists had released engineered plagues that would consume any organic matter for centuries. Agricultural worlds were salted with radioactive isotopes that would poison the soil for generations. General Amy Rodriguez commanded the defense of the Proxima system from her flagship. She had been a career soldier for 30 years, but she had never given an order like this one. "All units, execute Phoenix Protocol," she transmitted. "Show them what happens when you threaten a species that conquered their own homeworld by setting it on fire." The 3 planets in the Proxima system died within minutes of each other. The first became a ball of fusion fire. The second collapsed into a gravity well. The third simply vanished in a cloud of radioactive dust. The Zephyrian fleet found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered. Previous conquered species had fought to preserve their worlds. Humans fought to deny them. There was no victory to be won here, only the choice between conquest and complete destruction. Admiral Morrison's fleet didn't engage the enemy directly. Instead, they served as shepherds, ensuring that every human world burned completely before the Zephyrians could claim them. It was the most terrible military strategy in galactic history, and it was working. Supreme Commander Zeth Kar of the Zephyrian hegemony watched the reports with growing horror. In 6 hours, humanity had destroyed 22 of their own worlds rather than surrender them. The hegemony had gained nothing but radioactive ash and poisoned ground. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." The message was simple: one more world to burn. Come and take it. The destruction of human worlds had begun like a wave of fire spreading across the galaxy. Each planet that burned sent a clear message to the Zephyrian hegemony: you can have our worlds, but you will inherit nothing but Ash. Commander Rachel Stone stood in the final command post on Tau Ceti Prime. The research world had been humanity's center for advanced science, home to laboratories that had unlocked the secrets of faster-than-light travel and artificial gravity. Now all of that knowledge would die with the planet. "Ma'am," her technician reported, "the final data burst is complete. All research files have been transmitted to the hidden archives." Rachel nodded. The knowledge would survive, stored in secret bases beyond Zephyrian space. But the laboratories, the equipment, the irreplaceable experimental setups, all of it would be destroyed rather than fall into enemy hands. "Activate the quantum destabilizers," she ordered. The devices had been designed to study the fundamental forces of reality. Now they would tear reality apart. The planet's surface began to shimmer and distort as space-time itself became unstable. Any Zephyrian who landed here would find themselves scattered across multiple dimensions. Captain Lisa Chun commanded the U.E.'s Vengeance, one of the last operational warships in human space. Her ship was damaged from the fighting at Alpha Centauri. But she had one final mission. The Zephyrian fleet was approaching Earth, and she would be humanity's last defender. "Captain," her weapons officer reported, "we're receiving targeting data from Earth Defense Command." Lisa looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet was massive, 47 ships against her single damaged cruiser. But she wasn't here to win. She was here to buy time. "All weapons, prepare for final attack. We're going to show them what happens when you corner a wounded animal." The Vengeance charged straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. Her weapons blazed, striking at the larger ships with everything she had. The Zephyrians responded with overwhelming firepower, but Lisa had expected that. "Ramming speed," she ordered. "Take us right into their flagship." The Vengeance struck the Zephyrian command ship at nearly light speed. The explosion could be seen from Mars, a brief new star that marked the end of humanity's space navy. But the sacrifice had meaning. The enemy fleet was now in disarray. Their command structure shattered on Earth. President Kevin Johnson stood in a deep bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. The surface world was already burning. The cities had been evacuated, then systematically destroyed by their own inhabitants. Humanity would not give the Zephyrians the satisfaction of conquest. "Mr. President," Dr. Warren approached with a tablet. In her hands, "the final preparations are complete. The core charges are in position." Kevin looked at the screen, showing Earth's beautiful blue surface. Somewhere up there, his grandchildren had played in Central Park. His wife had tended her garden in California. All of it was already gone, consumed by the fires that humanity had set to deny their world to the invaders. "How long?" he asked. "Once we activate the charges, the chain reaction will take approximately 6 hours. Earth will become a second sun, visible from nearby star systems. The energy release will be comparable to a small supernova." Kevin nodded. It was fitting somehow. Humanity had always been the species that played with fire. Now they would become fire itself. General Carter coordinated the final defense from Luna Base. The moon had been hollowed out over centuries, turned into a fortress that could protect Earth. But there was no protecting Earth from what was about to happen. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender demands from the Zephyrian fleet. They're offering to spare Earth if we call off the destruction protocols." Carter laughed bitterly. "Tell them it's too late. Tell them we chose to burn free rather than live as slaves." The Zephyrian fleet had finally realized what they were facing. This wasn't a war in any sense they understood. This was a mass suicide on a galactic scale, a species choosing extinction over submission. Supreme. Commander Zethkar tried one final time to reason with the humans. His transmission was broadcast to every receiver on Earth. "Humans of Earth," his voice was desperate now, "stop this madness. Your worlds are gone, but your species can survive. Surrender now, and we will relocate you to reservation planets. You can live in peace under our protection." The response came from Admiral Morrison, speaking from the last human ship in Earth orbit. Zephyrian Commander. Morrison's voice was calm. You still don't understand. We are not a species that accepts protection. We are not a species that lives in cages. We are the species that learn to make fire, and fire is freedom. The transmission ended. There would be no more words. Dr. Warren stood beside the final control panel. One button would activate the charges that would turn Earth into a star. Behind her, the last representatives of human government waited. They had all chosen to stay, to witness the end of their world. For freedom, she whispered, and pressed the button. The charges detonated simultaneously around the planet's core. Deep beneath the surface, fusion fire began to spread through the prepared channels. The planet's magnetic field fluctuated wildly as the core became unstable. On the surface, the Zephyrian landing forces found themselves facing a different kind of enemy. The ground beneath their feet was heating up. The air itself was becoming radioactive. The planet was literally burning from the inside out. All units, retreat to orbit, came the panicked order from the Zephyrian command. The planet is becoming unstable. But it was too late. The chain reaction had begun. Earth's surface cracked open like an egg, releasing streams of superheated plasma into space. The atmosphere caught fire, turning the sky into a blazing furnace. The Zephyrian ships in low orbit were consumed by the expanding inferno. Their advanced shields meant nothing against the fury of a dying planet. Earth was becoming a weapon, a stellar bomb that would burn for days. From Luna Base, General Carter watched his homeworld die. The blue marble that had given birth to humanity was now a ball of fire, brighter than the sun. The sight was terrible and beautiful at the same time. All units, he transmitted to the few remaining human ships. Phase 3 is complete. Earth is confirmed destroyed. Begin final evacuation procedures. The last human survivors lifted off from Luna Base, their ships disappearing into hyperspace. Behind them, Earth burned with the light of a star, visible from Alpha Centauri. The Zephyrian hegemony had come to conquer a world and found only fire. The message was clear. Humanity would rather burn than kneel. The burning of Earth sent shockwaves through the galaxy that went far beyond the physical destruction. The Zephyrian hegemony had conquered 17 civilizations, but they had never faced anything like this. A species that would rather destroy everything than submit was something new and terrifying. Supreme. Commander Zethkar stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing horror. Where human worlds had once shown as green dots, there were now only red symbols marking radioactive wastelands. 43 worlds destroyed in less than a week. His invasion force had gained nothing but poisoned ground and burning ash. Sir? His aide approached carefully. The High Command is requesting a full report. They want to know why we have suffered such massive losses with no territorial gains. Zethkar turned away from the display. How could he explain this to the ruling council? How could he tell them that humans had chosen extinction over slavery? The hegemony's entire military strategy was based on the assumption that intelligent species wanted to survive. Draft a message to High Command, he ordered. Tell them we have encountered a species that considers death preferable to conquest. Tell them we need to reconsider our approach. But even as he spoke, Zethkar knew it was too late. The damage was already done. Reports of human defiance were spreading through the hegemony's subject worlds. For the first time in generations, conquered species were beginning to whisper about resistance. On the subject world of Altair Prime, former Republic Senator Maria Santos heard the news through secret channels. The Altarians had surrendered without a fight, choosing slavery over destruction. They had survived, but at what cost? Now they learned that another species had chosen differently. They burned their own worlds, she whispered to herself. Resistance fighters. They chose to die free rather than live as slaves. The story spread like wildfire, to the underground networks. Humans had shown that there was another choice, another way to respond to Zephyrian ultimatums. The subject. Worlds began to stir with new hope. Admiral Morrison commanded the last operational human fleet from his ship, the U.S. Phoenix. They had evacuated the surviving human population to secret colonies in the Andromeda Galaxy, but their mission was not complete. The galaxy needed to know what had happened and why. Communications, Morrison ordered, prepare a wideband transmission. Send it to every inhabited system in the galaxy. The message that followed would become known as the Phoenix Declaration. It was broadcast in over 200 languages, ensuring that every intelligent species would hear humanity's final words. People of the galaxy, Morrison's voice carried across the stars. I am Admiral Jake Morrison of the human race. By the time you hear this message, our worlds are gone. We chose to burn them rather than surrender them to the Zephyrian hegemony. The transmission continued for an hour, explaining humanity's choice and the reasons behind it. Morrison spoke of freedom, of dignity, of the right to choose one's own fate. Most importantly, he spoke of the price of resistance. We do not tell you to follow our path, he concluded. We only tell you that there is a choice. You can kneel, or you can burn. We chose to burn free. The choice is yours. On the mining world of Vega 7, the local Zephyrian governor received disturbing reports. Work productivity had dropped by 30%. The human destruction had inspired something dangerous in the subject populations. Hope. Sir, his security chief reported, we're detecting increased underground activity. The subject species are organizing. They're calling it the Phoenix Movement. The governor felt a chill. He had read the classified reports about the human worlds. The destruction had been total, absolute. Not one human world had been left habitable. The cost of their defiance had been extinction. Double the security patrols, he ordered, and send a message to High Command. The human example is spreading. We may have a rebellion on our hands. Dr. Elizabeth Warren sat in the command center. Of New Hope, humanity's first colony in the Andromeda Galaxy. Through the viewports, she could see the construction of new cities, new farms, new research facilities. The human race would survive, but barely. Out of 12 billion people, only 3 million had escaped the destruction. Doctor, her assistant approached with a data tablet. We're receiving reports from our intelligence network in the Milky Way. The Phoenix movement is spreading faster than expected. 17 subject worlds have reported organized resistance activities. Warren smiled grimly. The price of humanity's defiance had been terrible, but perhaps it would not be in vain. If other species found the courage to resist, then the sacrifice of Earth and the other worlds might have meaning. Continue monitoring, she ordered, and begin preparations for Phase 2. Captain Danny Torres commanded one of the few remaining human ships in Milky Way space. His mission was dangerous, but necessary. He was documenting the aftermath of humanity's choice. The galaxy needed to see what the Zephyrian hegemony had gained from their ultimatum. His ship approached the dead system that had once been home to New Terra. The Zephyrian fleet was still there, trying to salvage something from the ruins. But there was nothing left to salvage. The planet had collapsed into a black hole, taking 3 enemy ships with it. Captain, his science officer reported, we're detecting similar patterns at all the destroyed worlds. The Zephyrians are finding nothing of value. The destruction was complete. Torres nodded. That had been the point. Humanity had denied the hegemony any benefit from their conquest. They had gained nothing but the knowledge that some species would rather die than submit. Back on the Zephyrian homeworld, the ruling council met in emergency session. The human resistance had cost them more than just military resources. It had cost them their reputation for invincibility. The subject worlds are restless, reported Security Minister Kethval. The human example has inspired resistance movements across 12 star systems. We are facing the possibility of widespread rebellion. The council debated for hours. Some wanted to crush the resistance movements with overwhelming force. Others suggested negotiation, offering better terms to prevent future destructions. But the damage was already done. The galaxy had seen that the Zephyrian hegemony could be defied. President Kevin Johnson recorded his final message from the evacuation ship carrying Earth survivors. He was old now, weakened by the stress of watching his world burn. But his voice was still strong when he spoke. "My fellow humans," he began, "we have paid a terrible price for our freedom. Our worlds are gone, our civilizations scattered to the winds. But we have shown the galaxy something important. We have shown them that some things are worth dying for." He paused, looking out at the stars of Andromeda. "We are no longer the human race that was born on Earth. We are the human race that chose to burn rather than kneel. We are the Phoenix people, born from the ashes of our own defiance. And we will never forget the price of freedom." The message ended. In the depths of space, the last human fleet continued its journey toward New Hope, carrying the survivors of a species that had chosen extinction over slavery. Behind them, the Milky Way burned with the light of dead human worlds, a galaxy-wide funeral pyre that would be remembered for 1,000 generations. The Zephyrian hegemony had won nothing but ash. And in that ash, the seeds of their own destruction had been planted. 5 years had passed since the burning of Earth. The Zephyrian hegemony still existed, but it was no longer the unstoppable force it had once been. A human example had planted seeds of rebellion across the galaxy, and those seeds were finally beginning to bloom. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Hope Station, watching the construction ships build humanity's new capital. The city rose from the surface of their new world like a phoenix from ashes, its towers reaching toward the stars. It was beautiful, but it was not home. Home was a ball of cooling radiation somewhere in the Milky Way, still too hot to approach after 5 years. "Sir," his aide approached with a communications tablet, "we're receiving a transmission from the Altarian resistance. They're requesting military advisors." Morrison took the tablet and read the message. The Altarians, who had surrendered without a fight, were finally ready to resist. They had learned from the human example that death was preferable to slavery. The Phoenix movement was spreading. "Prepare a response," Morrison ordered. "Tell them we'll send what help we can. But remind them that the price of freedom is always paid in blood." Dr. Elizabeth Warren had aged considerably in the 5 years since the burning. The weight of destroying 43 worlds had taken its toll, but she had not stopped working. Her new laboratory was dedicated to a single purpose: ensuring that humanity's sacrifice would not be forgotten. "Doctor," her assistant called from across the lab, "the memorial archive is complete. Every human world that burned has been documented. Every person who died has been remembered." Warren nodded. The archive would be broadcast across the galaxy, ensuring that every intelligent species would know what had happened. The story of humanity's choice would survive even if the human race did not. "Begin transmission," she ordered. "Let the galaxy remember." On the former subject world of Centauri Prime, the rebellion had begun. The Centaurians had been slaves for 10 years, but the human example had shown them another way. They could not destroy their world as humans had done, but they could make it too costly for the Zephyrians to hold. General Paul Martinez, one of the few human military advisors still operating in the Milky Way, watched the Centaurian forces prepare for battle. They were not as well equipped as the Zephyrians, but they had something the enemy lacked: the willingness to die for their freedom. "Remember," he told the Centaurian commanders, "you're not fighting to win. You're fighting to make them pay. Every Zephyrian soldier who dies here is one less to oppress another world. The battle began at dawn. The Centaurians fought with desperate courage, knowing that defeat meant not just death, but the end of their rebellion. But they had learned from the human example. When the Zephyrian forces overwhelmed their positions, the Centaurians retreated to prepared positions filled with explosives. If they could not hold their world, they would deny it to the enemy. Supreme Commander Zethkar received the report from Centauri Prime with growing dread. The rebellion was spreading faster than his forces could contain it. 6 worlds were now in open revolt, and more were showing signs of unrest. The human example had become a galactic plague. "Sir," his aide reported, "the High Command is demanding immediate results. They want the rebellions crushed within 30 days. Zethkar laughed bitterly. The High Command still did not understand what they were facing. This was not a military problem that could be solved with force. This was an idea, and ideas could not be killed with weapons. "Draft a message to High Command," he ordered. "Tell them that the humans have created something new. They have shown the galaxy that death is preferable to slavery. We cannot fight an idea with battleships." Captain Danny Torres had become humanity's unofficial historian, documenting the spread of the Phoenix movement across the galaxy. His small ship traveled from system to system, recording the stories of species that had chosen to resist the Zephyrian hegemony. On Vega 7, the miners had flooded their tunnels rather than let the Zephyrians profit from their labor. On Rigel Prime, the scientists had destroyed their research rather than let it be used for conquest. On Altair Prime, the former Republic was rebuilding its military in secret, preparing for the day when they would reclaim their freedom. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian fleet. They're demanding that we surrender for questioning." Torres smiled. He had expected this. The Zephyrians wanted to capture him, to learn the secrets of human resistance. But he had learned from Admiral Morrison's example. "All hands, prepare for Phoenix Protocol," he ordered. "We burn free, or we don't burn at all." His ship's reactor overloaded, creating a brief star that could be seen from 3-star systems. The message was clear. Even individual humans would choose death over capture. On New Hope, the human survivors had built a memorial to the worlds that had burned. 43 stone pillars rose from the center of the city, each one representing a world that had chosen death over slavery. At the base of each pillar was a simple inscription. They chose to burn free. President Kevin Johnson, now in his 80s, stood before the memorial as he prepared to record his final message. The cancer that had been eating at him for months would soon claim his life, but he had one more duty to perform. "My fellow humans," he began, his voice weak but determined. "I am dying, but our cause is not. Across the galaxy, species are choosing freedom over slavery. They are choosing to burn rather than kneel. We showed them the way, and they are following." He paused, looking at the memorial pillars. "We paid a terrible price for our freedom. 43 worlds burned. 12 billion people died. But their sacrifice was not in vain. The galaxy is waking up. The Zephyrian hegemony is crumbling. Freedom is spreading like fire across the stars." The message ended. Within hours, it was being broadcast to every inhabited system in the galaxy. The old president's words became a rallying cry for resistance. Movements everywhere. The Zephyrian hegemony lasted another 10 years before it finally collapsed. The rebellion that had begun with humanity's sacrifice spread to every corner of their empire. Species after species chose to fight rather than submit, inspired by the example of a race that had burned their own worlds rather than surrender them. When the last Zephyrian stronghold fell, the victorious rebels found records of the human destruction. The official reports were clinical and cold, But they told a story that would be remembered forever. The story of a species that had chosen extinction over slavery. In the New Hope archives, Dr. Warren's final entry was simple. The human race chose to burn rather than kneel. We lit a fire that consumed an empire. We showed the galaxy that some things are worth dying for. Freedom is one of them. The memorial on New Hope still stands today, 500 years later. Visitors from across the galaxy come to see the 43 pillars and read the inscription at their base. The words are simple but powerful. They chose to burn free. And in the depths of space, where Earth once spun in its perfect orbit, there is only cooling radiation and the memory of a world that chose to become a star rather than accept chains. The galaxy remembers. The galaxy learned. And the galaxy will never forget the species that taught it the true meaning of freedom. The human race had burned, but from their ashes, the galaxy had learned to be free. It was a price worth paying, and a lesson worth teaching. They had chosen to burn rather than kneel, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy that some things are more valuable than life itself. Freedom is one of them.